Uh, I'm very pleased to be joined today by the winners of the Entrepreneurship category of the Case Centre Awards and Competitions 2022. Ann-Kathrin Leiting of Bosch Energy and Building Solutions, Jana Thiel of ETH Zurich, and Bart Clarysse of ETH Zurich. They are the winning authors of the case Developing an Effective Corporate Entrepreneurship System, the case of the Robert Bosch Group. This is a very welcome first award for Ann-Kathrin, Jana and Bart, and also for ETH Zurich. And it's a very welcome winner for us as well, because it highlights the increasing diversity among our award winners, keeping case writing refreshed around the world. This is a fascinating case. It looks at the dilemma of a big corporation trying to balance the need to be agile with paying due respect to its corporate history. To find out more about the case and go behind the scenes with the authors, let me start by asking, what is the case about? And could you tell us about the protagonist and what is at stake for them?
So the case is basically about the Robert Bosch Group. It's a multinational engineering and technology company headquartered in Germany. And over the past few years, the company experienced the increasing need to transform itself because there are quite some dynamics in the industry ongoing. They're changing customer demands, changing business models, a lot of pressure also from new players in the industry. And that's why the company just strives for a transformation. The company also announced that it would like to become a major IoT player. And one vehicle for this transformation are corporate entrepreneurship initiatives. And that's basically what the case is about. The protagonist is Rainer Simons. He is head of corporate innovation at the case company, and he's in charge for different entrepreneurial initiatives. And he was asked for a management meeting to review those initiatives because there are quite some issues. They are kind of successful. Bosch is also state of the art when it comes to corporate innovation, but looking at the outcome of the corporate innovation initiatives, many projects fail to receive long-lasting support in the company. At a certain point, they need to be stopped. So in the case, students are asked to review those different initiatives, and they just get a really nice overview of what's going on regarding innovation and entrepreneurship in a large company. I was part of a corporate venture within the case company, and first I thought, well, that's really ideal. You get the best of both worlds, of the entrepreneurial world and of the corporate world, because on the one hand side, you're in a smaller team, you're quite flexible, low hierarchies, you can really try to better understand a new market and establish a new business model, a new business in that market. And on the other hand, you have all the security and the safety you need, being part of a large company with enough funding behind. Even in case you fail with your project, you're still working in that company. You will just find another project. So that was my initial thought. And then when we started, I experienced myself how difficult it can be to live with that two words and to just try to set up a new business in an established organization. And I experienced that there are lots of difficulties when it comes to processes, for example, to cultural differences also. And this was basically how we got the idea for this case.
From our end, like at ETH, what was for me quite interesting is to see that this topic of corporate innovation and corporate entrepreneurship is, of course, a quite long-standing theme that we observe in innovation and strategy. But it comes back now with a renewed emphasis, I would say. We see many different corporations trying to build on these new entrepreneurial methods like lean startup and developing business model canvases and so forth. And we see that as a practice really being imported in many of these large corporations. And we were very fascinated and interested in really trying to see, okay, what's going on here? Does it work differently than what we've seen in the past? How does it change a bit the approach of corporates to entrepreneurship and innovation?
Now, the case is a field research case. Are there any tips and hints you would be able to share with other case writers approaching perhaps a field research case for the first time?
Yeah, I think it's important that if you do a field research case that you have a theory in mind, because although the case is rather descriptive, it's used to induce quite a few theoretical insights about what might work and what might not work. So on the one hand, there's description of corporate acceleration and corporate incubation and even a bit of corporate venture capital. This is all things that can be discussed in class and just described. But I think it's important that before writing such a case that there is a theoretical idea. And in this case, this idea was very much how to bring innovative projects or business models or entrepreneurial projects inside a corporate with a very different way of looking at things. And so a lot of the interviews were geared towards understanding how to do that. And I think that's important, that there is like a theoretical story that is the end story, so that is novel. So that if you teach it, that you can also bring in that novelty into the classroom.
Did you find that theoretical background helped in achieving buy-in from the people within the company as well?
The buy-in was more because Bosch has a PhD program where Ann-Kathrin was financed by. And so by doing that, we were actually dragged into Bosch. And many of these PhD programs are very short-term and more industrial kind of PhDs or DBA kind of things than very academic, profound PhD. So a teaching case that makes it a first step in a PhD almost, where you don't have to take into account a lot of the methodological considerations and a lot of the fine-tuning in terms of vocabulary and how to address certain things and positions. So it's in a way an easy way to get into a context while still reading this theory. And I think that kind of model, I think Ann-Kathrin, we tried it out first once with Ann-Kathrin. I know we have like already the third iteration of this model where we start with a teaching case that makes it very accessible, I think. So we didn't need, it was not a way to get buy-in, but it makes it easier to talk.
I think for the company, it's also really interesting to get this theoretical perspective added to what they can see in their everyday life. So that makes it really enriching for both sides, for academia, but also for the practical side, for industry.
I want to end now by turning to how the case works in the classroom. Do you find that it works better with a particular type or level of student or type of course? And what do you think there is about the case that makes it so popular?
So I use it in executive MBA and more executive programs. So starting with executive MBA, let's say 5 to 10 years experience, because most of these people have heard in their companies about various initiatives that they heard of but do not always know of. For instance, almost all large companies have some corporate acceleration kind of thing, but they typically don't really understand what does it do in our company. So for a lot of these participants and students, it's a very nice way to get to understand what kind of tools do you have in an innovation landscape nowadays to work with. Like design tools, which everybody almost is confronted with today, and what are their limits, and when do they fall into more acceleration tools like lean startup and lean canvases and all these kind of things, and when what does that mean with the incubator then, how does that differ? So I think that brings it very much to life. I think with the more senior people, the most executives, what they like is the fact that most of these projects are not so successful. And so they can discuss about how to get resources for these projects when there is no returns on investment yet. And so what kind of criteria, how would they match the expectation of Bosch as a corporate? What would such a company expect in order to sell them? And very often they translate that to their own company context, where they say, okay, we are not Bosch, but in our company, for instance, comparing with A, B, or C competitor is a key aspect. So if you have that, that's something that will, so they always can translate that into their own corporate environment, I would say. And because Bosch is such a nice company, it has so many aspects, and many come from smaller companies, but Bosch has everything. They did it all very professional. Most companies don't have the resources to do it in such a way like they did. And then the projects they have done are also very talkative. They have like this project on the adorable robot. This is something everybody can have an opinion about. This is not like a fintech company where people need to invest 1 hour before they understand what the product is. So these things are all, make it all very visual and interesting for people to look at, and then they can say, well, in our company, they wouldn't have the financial resources to set up a CVC fund, but we might want to do something in design, the front end, and acceleration. So you can always say, okay, this is a company that is that has deep pockets in a way and can do everything. But then for your company, you can just pick out what is interesting within your specific context.
Congratulations again on your win. It's a really thoroughly well-deserved award. And perhaps we could end by celebrating if you want to show us your awards. And congratulations again. And thank you very much again for the conversation today.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
you.
It's really a great honor for us. Thanks.